Hello everybody and welcome back to F1 22 with me, Dan, and the Slothz Tech team as we move on to the Singapore Grand Prix round 12. As you can see, there's quite a large amount of time between the previous race in the Netherlands and the one in Singapore. So we're going to get underway and see how much money we can get and how many resource points that we can put to good use on some upgrades. Quick little issue to resolve here. We don't want Porsche losing any driver focus, so we pick up that 10% morale decline for the area department, since we're not actually doing any right now, he says, as we go ahead and potentially, yes, buy the Halo upgrade to improve the rear downforce. And you can see that we're still climbing up the order in terms of performance at the moment. There's a chassis upgrade going through as well. That was some weight reduction. All of this gearing up towards, hopefully, the Mexican Grand Prix, given that there's a very long straight there. We can take advantage of our straight line speed, as we've done in the past. For now, though, we've got Singapore, and up next, actually, after this one, will be Japan. And as you can see, there we are in the performance graph, actually now the 5th worst car. So we're climbing up the order slowly but steadily, just ahead of AlphaTauri and Haas. Moving on to practice though, and it's straight into the performance upgrades and trying to get as many of these resource points as we can. And then there's some weight distribution ones that we'll be very interested in at some stage. But for P1 though, that was it. It was a very short session, only getting two of the resource point cards. Over to P2, doing the same again, picking up as many points as possible, just to try and speed along our upgrades as much as possible. The discounts, as nice as they aren't quite as important at the moment, because we just really need as many resource points as possible. Finally, over to P3, we actually pick up this ERS upgrade because we don't have the 75 points available there. I'm not sure what I'm doing at this point yet. There we go. That's the one I hoped I went for. Weight redistribution, another weight reduction one, which is incredibly important. And we failed that one. So now it's straight into the race today. And here we go with the Singapore Grand Prix. I actually couldn't make an intro for this because my downloader tool doesn't work anymore. So I couldn't get the background flag that I normally have for the grid order, and I don't actually have an intro at all because I never made one back in the F1 2021 day, so I have literally nothing I can use. So we're just straight into this one right now, and I think in the future, as I've said in previous videos, after Season 2 finishes, we'll just use the in-game one, because it's a lot less work for much more reward, I think. And it saves me time, which means I can make more of these videos and won't get burnt out as easily. But they may make a return in the distant future as we make a dive bomb down the inside of not one but two Red Bulls on the opening lap there. Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez ruining the day that they started ahead of us. No doubt having flashbacks to the previous Grand Prix in the Netherlands, where I actually overtook the pair of them twice due to a pit stop error with the back right tyre. For now, though, we continue on through the twisty streets of Marina Bay. George Russell, the next car ahead of us. And at this point, I begin to realise that the car has probably reached about the maximum that it can achieve in this race. Here's on board at the start, which I decided to completely ignore for some reason. And we actually had a bit of a dice with an Alpine or two as we went through turn 1. We had a Williams, I believe, on our inside, and then the Alpine teammates on our outside, which didn't make things particularly easy as we watch Esteban off. And look at that absolutely godly launch that you've got there. We damage our front wing very slightly, which does kind of cost us quite a bit of performance over the course of the Grand Prix. As you can see, we're actually just about hanging on to George Russell here at the DRS zone, coming down towards our pit stop on lap 5. Which isn't great. The car at this point is probably hitting about the maximum performance that we can achieve for this Grand Prix, purely because the chassis is letting us down. At least that's what I believe it is. And when compared to the other cars, as we absolutely twat the rear end against the wall, we have a very good straight line speed. So when we come to circuits like this, well, we can't actually use it very well, nor our kind of high speed cornering, we really begin to suffer. And it's really, really on display here. The Netherlands wasn't too bad because there was a couple of straights that we could use that on. Here, though, it is particularly bad. Coming into the pits now. McLaren just pulling out. Maybe a little bit late in front of us, but we don't have penalties for unsafe releases in this game, so we make do. As an issue that I've encountered a few times, actually, the pit box do not release you right as, maybe it's just the timing, but right as I release the clutch, they don't seem to want to let me go. I have to keep double clutching, which is a little bit annoying, especially when I'm in a rush to leave the pit lane, when you're going to rejoin the circuit in last place, hoping to get an undercut, which here we are at the end of that lap, looking to get an undercut on George Russell. You can see on the mini-map down the bottom left, he's already going through turn one. His teammates got on past him, and there he is, George Russell, sitting now in P11 as we just wait for the remaining cars at the front to come into the pit lane. And we'll see if we can actually do anything here down the first of the DRS straight, see if we can push our way as fast as possible to the finish, maybe get past him, which pushes up into a higher top 10 position. Yellow flags are out though, as one of the Red Bulls behind us, Sergio Perez, retires from the session with an engine issue of some description. But yes, here we go. You can see George Russell out of these corners. Maybe it's to do with his chassis, his lighter chassis, or he's got better rear grip coming out of the corners so that he can really put the power down. But 7 laps in, I mean, we're still chasing the Mercedes down. Look at him go. I know I didn't put the DRS open as quickly as I could have done there, but here we are, 7 laps later on lap 14 of 15. Absolutely crashed into the wall there, further damaging the front wing. Then again, it doesn't look as though it's too worse off than it was. But yes, that's it. We're on to the final lap already. Nothing else really happened in this Grand Prix, to be perfectly honest with you. Ideally, what we'd have liked is for somebody like George Russell to start challenging Carlos Sainz for position. We could have at least, during their fight, managed to worm our way up to 5th place, or at least try and get into 5th place as they're squabbling amongst themselves. If you remember back to Azerbaijan, we had an absolutely triumphant overtake as Charles Leclerc and George Russell were fighting through turn 2, absolutely ruined each other's corner and allowed us to slip right up the middle of them. Unfortunately, on this occasion, though, it looks as though the Mercedes was a bit more outclassed by the Ferrari. At least George Russell was not able to outclass Carlos Sainz. And, well, you can see by the lead that Charles Leclerc has that clearly his Ferrari has been incredibly dominant as well. As performance changes throughout the teams, we've seen Ferrari, McLaren and Mercedes all be at the top, as are Red Bull at the top of the performance graph, multiple points throughout the season. Alpine have been not far off the top 4, but here we are in the 5th worst car, which is respectable, and this is about as good as we can get, even Théo Pourchaire. And I know that the AI is probably going to perform a little bit worse than us because he's an AI and he's a rookie driver, not to mention the fact that he's in the 5th worst car. Could only make P21, and even Nicholas Latifi's behind him, and he's half a second up the road. Anyway, we come around the final corner. This is the best that we could do, so we celebrate in style by popping a drift across the finish line. There goes Max Verstappen, no doubt incredibly angry that we beat him for the 2nd time in a row. And Charles Leclerc picks up driver of the day. I don't actually know where he started, given the fact that the grid order wasn't on display at the start of the race. So I'm going to assume that he did an okay job, as Les Lando Norris physically assaulting Charles Leclerc in front of a crowd of Ferrari supporters. There they all are. I don't know how they got back there, but they're clearly very happy, and Charles Leclerc thinks they're part of his pit crew. But anyway, there we go. He picks up the trophy. There they are again, cheering, very happy, and both McLarens on the podium yet again. A very strong season for them. Let's go to the results. And here we go with the race results. We had Charles Leclerc, Fernando Alonso and Lando Norris top of the podium, with Norris getting the fastest lap, followed by Lewis Hamilton, Carlos Sainz, George Russell, Radiant Slothz, Max Verstappen, Esteban Ocon and Lance Stroll. Over to the Drivers' Championship, Charles Leclerc remains at the top of the table ahead of Fernando Alonso and Lando Norris, followed by George Russell, Max Verstappen, Sergio Perez, Carlos Sainz, Radiant Slothz, Lewis Hamilton and Esteban Ocon. Further down the order we have Lance Stroll, Yuki Tsunoda, Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly, Kevin Magnussen, Oscar Piastri, Daniel Ricciardo, Nicholas Latifi, Pierre Pourchaire, Robert Schwartzman, Joe Guan Yu and Mick Schumacher. Finally, over to the constructors, everyone remains in the same positions with McLaren, Ferrari, Red Bull, Mercedes, Slothz, Alpine, AlphaTauri, Williams, Haas, Alfa Romeo and Aston Martin remaining in order. That's all for now. We'll catch you next time for Japan.